Hello. Ooh. Hello. All right, you guys can see this, huh? All right, I'm gonna jump into this like it's working. It doesn't seem to be showing right on the Creative Studio, but if you can hear me. All right. All right, let's do this. Hopefully you're having a good day. I can't see people's comments, sadly. I don't know why this is not working on my end, but I know you guys can see it, so that's all that matters. P-Bird, nice call on TLT buys today here, closing the gap. Not surprised. We talked about this in the weekend recap. You could have a doji with a pullback. Not too worried about it. Near term, I think you can get the 50, 20-day cross. Let's get into the miners. I'm going to start with Newmont because that is just bloody awesome, literally. If you look at what's going on here, big monster candle, right? You can see it's been beaten. We are coming into some major support on the monthly. You can see the volume at price zone. Big down candle. People were pretty funny about the top in this because when we were talking about like selling the miners, I know a few of us got ridiculed for saying you better sell your Newmont in the 80s because it's probably not going to hold up. And what did it do? Proceeded to drop. And now we're back at the trend line, which if you do the math on this has been an absolute shit kicker, cut in half. And now what? I think you're getting to the point where again, I'm not going to buy Newmont because it's the behemoth of the sector. I really don't want to. But I think you will get opportunities because if this does break, could it turn into the 2008 wipeout? Probably. But what I'm looking for is something like here, at worst a bounce from like June, July, like summer pop. I don't know how much deeper this can go. Again, this is where you're all speculating, and you hopefully can see how this makes sense on a general level when you zoom in. Because what you see now is what? Capitulation, right? Just total carnage, blowout, novice gap, gap down, continuation. Now, some might argue this is a professional gap because you broke this. I mean, I guess you could potentially call it that. But let's go look intraday because I want to look at Newmont, like the intraday. We had a bunch of chop at the open. Again, these candles are all huge volume. Then you got this chop, and now you just look at the action. There's no continuing open up candles. It's just been a steady bleed, and now you're getting what? A doji on the 10-minute. I was looking at this stuff as we were going, thinking, like again, this compressed action leads to another 3-candle series down. At this point, though, watch for it. Because what did I say earlier in the Discord room? Like, do not be surprised if they knock the 45 level because of stops, right? Think about it. How many people have got stops there? If you were a long-term holder of Newmont, and again, round numbers, you probably had 50 was a big one, hence the action today. Like once it broke 50, it was adios. Now another one's going to be 45. Let's zoom into some other time frames because this is with the key with watching different time frames is you can really see what you're looking for. Again, tight action. Notice the candle size is getting a little smaller. I want to see this candle tighten up on the next hour. Okay, so that's all you really need to pay attention to. Let's get into the whole the sector as a whole. Why is this being Why can't I drive you? It's like I need a learner's permit to drive this thing. No, I just don't trade on this computer. You guys know that. Because what I'm interested in gold, because it's starting to look like, again, hey, post a comment if you can hear me. I just want to make sure I'm not talking to myself. It looks very ominous because I've said this, this 157 area is what? It's 1680. It was the overnight, right? It was the overnight lows, correct? Now what? You're making higher lows. You never got it during the regular trading hours, which is pretty funny. You have a double bottom. Now the key is to get over this 160 plus area. I mean, notice what's happening today. We're kind of tightened up. This is how I would think about the rest of the week. I think there's going to be data tomorrow. It's probably going to miss. Is bad news good news? I think at this point, I mean, based on the way the market's acting, it really doesn't sound or seem like it's going much lower, right? And if the market does go down, it probably gaps down and rallies back. It's one of those things. This is why it's so confusing, because I see a lot of retail traders going head and shoulders top on the SPY. Look at this real quick. You can see it here on the hourly. Left shoulder, right shoulder. Here's your head. Just draw it out real quick. Everybody's calling it. You guys know, when I hear retail calling it, what do we know? If the head and shoulders is invalidated, adios, mother boop. Yeah. So I would watch that downtrend, because again, it's not whether you're bullish long term or bearish. It's just you have to know that the market makers are playing games with the sentiment, right? A lot of really negative headlines over the weekend, right? You got more Russia games. They're blowing up grain after they let them supposedly take them. Like, they weren't going to do that. They were like, all right, we'll let you guys do some grain stuff. And then they blew up their silos, which is not very friendly. Monkeypox. I mean, it's literally a bunch of, you know what? Again, ultimately this stuff might matter, but near term, it doesn't. What's more important? Feds and earnings. Always keep in mind, earnings is typically seasonally bullish. Why? Because what's the CEOs are going to say? We suck. Economy is the worst. Our company's going in the shitter. No, they're performance based. They're performance based on how the stock does. So of course they want to pump the shit out of it. So let's jump back into the gold real quick, and I'll try to wrap a bow on this pretty quickly. All right, gold needs to get back over the 160s area again. Maybe the 20-day. Either way, it's holding up pretty well. Silver, we talked about. Posted this earlier. It's making a higher low. It filled the gap. You can see that, right? You don't need to be a genius. You can see it's filled the gap. Here you go. Filled the gap. Battling back. Again, no volume. This is where I think the volume might come in this week. This is where the Fed action. And one of the things that I've seen before with the Feds is what? Sometimes it's just straight run up. And here, let me go back to the last time. Again, I don't know if this is the long-term bottom. But here it was in the Feds. Mid-December. Boom. Bottom and see here you came back. Same thing with gold. Again, if you're newer to the channel, you weren't following this. Literally, I did a video on this, why gold was stuck. December 15th was the last Fed meeting and it just went. Now, the days before it pulled back. Look at that double bottom. Do we already have the double bottom? This is where it gets really difficult because you don't know short term. So have stops, have a plan, be thoughtful. But let's go look at the GDX again, because I think this is what is getting pretty out of hand in the sense that it's just a beatdown. Now, again, what would Livermore say? Lower prices don't mean you can't go lower, right? Well, let's think about it near term. We're at the bottom of my, congestion zone that I think should be support. Now, it doesn't mean we can't get back down to 22 or 23. Newmont is definitely doing the swing low, just smasher. But we're below the 100 month. Keep in mind, it's been resistance. You might be able to see a little better on the weekly. What's going on? You're filling some gaps. What's crazy, you have tons of gaps down here. Do you get 20? This becomes one of the things that I've talked about, is that maybe you could get down there. But this is just bloody red. I mean, you're due for even a little bit of this. Again, I want to press upon people that ultimately, when is the best time to buy this stuff? I've said this every video recap, people who might be popping in. It's probably going to be in the fall because October is when scary season happens for market. That's when all the major crashes. That's probably when the Fed's going to realize that they've been raising rates and the economy's falling off a cliff because unemployment is exploding. That's probably the time. Can't it be just some sort of bounce? And then they do the math here, 32 up to 38. I mean, that seems very logical. 34 to 38. Again, I'm not going here for the moon. I'm just trying to be thoughtful, smart about what the positions could do. It's really that simple. If you have a question, type it in the chat. I can read that. Again, I just think at this point, it's just getting so tight. So tight. I'm not playing the GDX. I'd rather play the GDXJ. I think you can see that there's definitely strength in the juniors. Hit the 20-day, not surprised, but look at the volume. It's starting to grow, starting to see a little bit more of it. Potentially head and shoulders bottom. Now, again, earnings can be kind of crappy for the miners because one of the things that people forget is that they're just not usually well-run companies, period. You know, these penny stock ones that you guys like, please, got to be careful with them. Will they grow up and sprout into real companies? Maybe. I really don't have faith in a lot of the penny ones because, again, if they shouldn't drop in price if actually somebody wants. Copper, which specific copper are you looking at, Jeff? I don't have copper futures on this particular trading platform. I guess I could pull it up on TradingView. I'd rather not build it, but I mean, I've been watching Arrow or Eero. Again, I think all this stuff is gonna pop. Even oil. That's what I think. In a moment, at some point this week, you're going to see a pop in the materials names. You're starting to actually see it with Mosaic, CF, all those guys. It's just a matter of like long term. I struggle with oil sustaining higher, right? I struggle with any of these inflation hedges holding up for a long period of time because what? When the market starts selling and you get into what? The massive wipeout, none of this stuff is going to be safe. Now, again, if you notice though, like gold in 2008 bottomed in October. Remember, the market didn't bottom until when? March. Keep that in mind. But this is when Kramer went nuts and said they know nothing and starts flipping out about them raising rates. Once the trajectory of rate hikes changed and it was more of rate cuts, then you started the massive bull market. I just don't think we're there yet, folks. We're way too early. It's only July. The Feds have this mandate to obviously raise rates in their mind, but in the near term, I think it's due for a bounce. Have stops, very tight stops. And again, if you're looking at other parts of the market, I wouldn't be surprised at some point the NASDAQ and SPY bounce. Everything gets a bounce here because the Feds are going to try to project that they're taking it easy. They're going to readjust. They're going to be data dependent. They're going to say the same crap they've been saying for months. But keep in mind, if you look at gold, the bigger picture, it's a monster cup and handle. Does the handle need to get back into the low mid 150s? I don't think there's much downside. I would say the same thing with silver. Kind of rambling here, but I think this stuff is interesting to put folks who want to nerd out on it. Hey, what's up, Kat? Here's the back test of the trend line here in the 16s. Now, again, if you're buying physical, I don't think it matters because the premiums are never going to compress like you want. That's the level I'd be looking for. But near term, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 months, you typically get the bounce. And if you do the bounce math, 19 up to 23, I think that's potentially in there. If the market does bounce, I think there will be certain leadership, meaning probably metals, potentially, probably not though, but it's going to be one of those things. If the market does bounce, the miners will get pulled up. That's the one thing that I think people know. Miners like a market that is stable to rising. Stable to rising. AG, let me pull up the good old AG. This thing is just, I don't think a lot of people realize that when we called the top here, testing the 14 levels, I got so much ridicule going, oh, it's about to break out. And it's like, this thing has been basing up here and it just can't go. And then when it failed, well, guess what? It was April. It was seasonality. Goodbye. Now down here, it's easy to want to jump in on this, right? But it's one of those things where, yeah, maybe it bounces. Long term, you can see there's a big monster pennant kind of whatever. This little formation here. 5s. Again, all of this stuff is all trades. Like, please don't marry any of this stuff. And if we have to be late, it's going to be months. I hope I can rest assure people. It's going to be months of moves. You're not going to need if you miss the bottom by a point, it gets very obvious that what happens. Being late is better than being early, because the one thing that we can all, I feel like everybody in this point can attest to, is being early in metals miners leads to purgatory. And the goal is to stay away from purgatory. I think there's a trade here. After that, who knows? Anyway, I'll see you guys in the Discord room. Hope this kind of stuff helps. And I'm trying to figure out how to shut this off.